In this video, we're going to talk about the WR155 and how does it compare to other motorbikes. Now, I'm not going to compare it to dirt bike, two-strokes, KTMs, these kind of things, because it's just a different beast. And yes, you would be right in saying it's better to go tricky off-roading on a KTM. I agree. But that's not really what this bike is specifically for. It's a dual sport motorbike and it should be compared to other dual sport motorbikes. Now, if you compare it to an XR150 or a CRF 250L, then this bike blows them out of the water. Now, the reason you can't compare it to dirt bikes is because it is capable of traveling on the road for hours on end with complete comfort. If I'm on my two-stroke for half an hour on the road, I want to go have a nap and I want to have a little cry. Whereas on the WR155, the noise is quiet, the travel is smooth, and you can just go for hours on end and get from A to B. And then when you get to B, you can do some serious off-roading too. Now, the first thing you notice on the WR155 is the power compared to its competitors. If you're driving a steep or tricky hill climb on an XR150 and you start to get about halfway and the power just diminishes and the bike feels like it's going to stall. And even if you slip the clutch, it just slowly dies and dies. Where on the WR155, if you keep the momentum up and you have some good speed, you will never struggle with that kind of thing on this bike. The power just keeps going. So the XR150 has 13 horsepower and the WR155 has 17. Now, I know that doesn't sound like very much, especially when you compare it to an adventure bike, but the weight to power ratio is really good, especially for a dual sport. Even if you compare it to a CRF 250L, the power feels much better on this. And the next thing you notice is the suspension. Have a little Google and a quick search, and I couldn't seem to find the exact suspension travel to compare it to the XR150. They say the XR is 7.1 inches. I, for the life of me, cannot find how much the WR155 is. If you can find out, leave it in the comments. But for sure, the travel feels a lot longer, and it's very rare when you're going over jumps, going over bumps, going over rocks, that you will bottom out the suspension on the WR155, which is just not the case on the XR or the CRF. The suspension is a bit harder, and I'm pretty sure the travel is more. So it allows you to ride that tricky terrain a lot faster without hurting the bike or your legs. Overall, the suspension just feels so much better. Another thing about the bike that helps you out with that tricky, rocky terrain is the foot pegs. They're a lot higher than on the XR150 or the CRF. Occasionally, when you're riding tricky terrain, you'll catch your feet on rocks or stones or bumps. With the WR155, I have never had that problem. And on the subject of catching your feet on the floor, let's talk about the brakes. So the XR150, the rear brake is so low that you try and brake going into a corner and you catch your foot on a rock. Luckily, my boots have always kept me safe, but that is definitely dangerous. Where the WR155, the rear brake is higher and it's a disc brake, not a drum brake. So that means the brake actually works. Now, if we want to take these bikes to difficult terrain, we want working brakes. And with the WR155, that's what you've got. Now, the final thing I'm going to talk about on the WR155 is the weight of the bike. It's 134 kilograms. Now, that's not a light bike. If you compare it to my KTM two-stroke, that's 105 kilograms. So it's nearly 30% heavier. But again, I said we're not going to compare it to dirt bikes. It's apples to oranges. We're going to compare it to its competitors. The XR150, a similar weight. The CRF 250L, 148 kilograms. So 14 kilograms makes a huge difference, and you really notice it when you're riding the trails. But weight also isn't everything. The way the bike feels, it feels so much lighter than those competitors. Because the bike is narrow and tall, it allows you to throw the bike side to side and have a lot of control with the bike. The bike feels agile and movable, where the XR150 is short and fat. It's so hard to throw into a corner or through a rock garden. This bike is so different. Even though it's 134 kilograms, it feels a lot lighter. Now, I've already alluded to this at the beginning of the video, This bike is perfect for touring. If you want to travel through a country, for example, I live in Vietnam, travel from the south to the north of Vietnam, or just explore the north, which is what I do more commonly, then this is the perfect bike because you can sit on the road for 6 to 8 hours and your bum doesn't go numb, your hands don't go numb, whereas if I'm on my KTM, I'm going to be in a bit of pain. And even some of the other bikes are just not as comfortable. But where it really shines is what I talked about in this video, and that's off-roading. So you can go on a long road ride, A to B, and then you can take it on an off-road adventure, and it's still a competitive bike. And that's what we want. Thank you for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then check out how to ride a semi-automatic scooter here. Thank you.